takes the deed to my house or something, you know, because he'd probably do that.
Wait.
No.
Are
Dude,
you
haven't you ever seen those
Are
stories?
you mistaking lawyers for wizards?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
shit.
he is.
Wait a minute. We were talking about the guy that wears the long suit, right? As a cane? Utters spells that make things change in real life. Yeah, that's a lawyer.
Today's episode is brought to you by our partner, Dirty B. From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, serious problems.
Serious.
A real therapist. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Broadcasting from the churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
And thanks to our third partner, Dirty B. Always thanking you. But, okay, wait a minute. That wizard and lawyer thing actually does work. So, like, if a lawyer's a judge, you're talking about a person carrying a wooden stick in a robe who can utter important phrases.
You
that
shall
can change.
not pass.
Yeah, guilty. Yeah, whatever.
then he hits
Fine
things.
you money. Yeah, and he smacks things, and then your real life changes because of the magic words that he uttered. That's a lot in common, isn't it? My point is, I'm terrified of the man.
Yeah,
So
and I don't think you should be.
I don't think I'm ever going to get my $500 back. I think that's it. I think I've been
I think
wholly
you got
scammed.
a dog with a bone, Jim.
Yeah.
Dog with a bone.
What does that mean?
You stick with it.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Be annoying.
And you bite anybody who tries to take it.
Yep.
Physically bite them.
Okay, yeah.
Actually bite.
I'm gonna write
Have
this
you
down.
tried biting
I'm going to
them?
write this down.
I'm
This is-
gonna give you advice
some
that I
notes.
know for a fact that you can follow. This is something that you can do.
Okay.
And I think it will get your money back. And I'm being 100% sincere right
I'm
now.
100% on board.
Annoy this guy.
Okay. Okay.
I know you can do it.
Yeah. Think I should just send him the pod?
I think.
Just start
you
emailing him
call-
episodes?
Send him a copy of your book every day.
I should send him a copy of the book. That's a great idea.
You call
Hey,
the
man,
office.
just
You
thinking of
annoy
you.
you annoy this man. You annoy the person at the front desk
Every
because
day.
she's going to turn around and annoy him for
Right.
you because you're annoying her.
It's got to be relentless.
You send emails
Yeah.
every single time
Schedule them.
confirming every call that you're going to make and then confirm that you made the call
That's smart.
via email as well. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
gonna call you at 1 p.m. on X date
To confirm that the check is there.
to confirm that the check is there. You call. If you don't get the answer you want, or if you do even,
Just to confirm. you
there's a
did not
follow-up
have it.
email. Hey, I'm just writing to confirm that I called you at 1 p.m., whatever the time was. The
Wow.
call lasted this amount of time.
Documenting.
And every single time.
Yeah, just
Oh.
spam his email.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
Just-
like penis pills and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like,
Yeah.
if you can, go by there every day.
I mean, honestly, I was going to say seduce his wife, but I kind of like
Yeah.
where Jacob's
Yeah.
going.
You know,
I don't see why we have to only do one of these things.
Yeah. There's no bad ideas. This
Yeah.
is the drafting phase. Okay. This is where we just throw things against the wall and something sticks. So
I
that's a
mean,
pretty
we
solid
could go
move.
back to my strategy from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
You
the
could-
one we
you
agreed
could
never
fuck
to
this
talk
guy's
about again.
mother.
There it is.
Yeah.
Why do you do this, Nick? I blame you. It's not his fault. You set him up. That was clearly going to happen. You set it up. It's not his fault.
When an 8-year-old gets in a car
That's right.
and drives and gets into an accident, you don't blame the 8-year-old.
Nobody's mad at the 8-year-old.
It's just the dog chasing cars.
Yep.
It's just like
Every
Batman,
now and then I
Dark
catch
Knight.
one.
Yeah. Dark
Now
Knight.
what, guys? I
Yeah.
got it.
Harvey's like, I blame the guy who let him off the leash.
So, for anybody who has no idea what we're talking about,
Patreon.com/therapy. You can find out about me going to a band dating website and apparently got doxxed on the air. So my track gets played in Patreon.com/therapy. And also you can hear about how I got scammed for
You
$500.
might not have to go to Patreon to hear the track.
No, you have to go to Patreon at least to find out where you can
It's
find the
possible
track.
that you might not have to go to Patreon to hear the track.
Deeper into the madness. We have a special guest today. It's ChatGPT. The artificial intelligence will be joining us because with the craze of everybody asking this goddamn thing questions, I decided to see if it could put us out of a job. So for two of today's questions, we will be letting ChatGPT speak on
We're
the issue.
going to start with one.
Yeah, well, we've got
At
two
least-
questions
at
in
least
this
one.
episode. Yeah,
But we
we'll
might
see.
veto it after the first one.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see how it does. So if it beats us at this game, you can fire us, and ChatGPT can just be your new podcast of choice. I'm sure that will work. But we've got some great questions today. First one coming from producer Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. And the question is, inventing a new way to mourn. Hey guys, The discussion about funerals and mourning on the Grandpa Jim episode got me thinking about different cultural grief rituals. Jews have Shiva. I grew up with the Christian tradition of the wake, and I'm sure there are plenty of other religious and regional traditions that I'm too lazy to research. It seems we've been performing
Probably.
Yeah, checks out.
Probably more than those two.
This is probably more than two. It seems we've been performing mourning rituals for as long as we've been dying. These rituals have developed over hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. These rituals were also built from tradition rather than psychology. We know a lot more about grief and mourning now. So here's the hypothetical. You're tasked with developing a new, community-wide mourning ritual based on your knowledge of psychology and human behavior. Imagine a real, close-knit community for this exercise. For example, if immediate family of the deceased are to take 10 days off work to mourn, the community pools resources to ensure that the bills are still paid, that kind of thing. I'm interested to hear, among the three of you, what are the important things to do as a community in grief? Thanks for most of what you do, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. I like this hypothetical. That's a cool idea. Have you ever seen some of the other traditions? Was it the Romans or the Vikings? I think it's the Romans that put coins on your eyes. Was that the thing?
Several of them did. Yeah.
Or was it the Greeks?
The Greeks did that.
I feel like in Troy they did that. I remember there was they did the pyre. They do the funeral pyre.
It was the Greco-Roman gods.
Okay.
Right? And I think that's kind of where it started because you had to pay the ferryman who took you across.
Yeah, the River Styx.
Afterlife.
Yeah. Was it Styx?
Yep.
No, Styx was a band.
No, it was the River Styx.
Okay.
I believe the band came second.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I might have to Google it.
Are you sure?
No.
Styx was formed after
the
ancient Greeks.
There was the
Greeks?
Archer-non guy.
I'm not. But that's what I think.
Yeah.
So you had to put coins on their eyes, and then they do the funeral pyre.
See, Cerberus was the dog.
Oh,
Cerberus
yeah,
is the
Cerberus
three-headed
was the
dog.
dog.
What's the ferryman's name?
I think it's Archer-non.
We'll go with Archer-non.
I feel like that's close. The only reason I know any of this,
I think it's Jerry.
Might have been it. Yeah,
Jerry the ferryman.
Of course it was, you idiot. No, there was a kick-ass video game called Dante's Inferno, and it was back on original Xbox. Oh my god, this game was so cool, and it was based on the book, and you go through the 9 levels of hell, and then at the end you fight Lucifer, and it's so fucking cool. That was a great game. So I learned a lot about all those mythologies in that game. That's where I get the most of my book learning from is video games.
Okay.
So do you have any traditions, funeral traditions from the Midwest? I feel like there is a tradition of the exactly, the potluck.
Yeah.
Or the family, you all bring them casseroles, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You feed the family that's grieving for a period of time so they're not having to cook.
A friend of mine, her family cuts their hair every time. Anytime someone dies, they all go cut their hair.
Wow.
It's a change in their life, and they want to signify the change in their life.
Oh, that's interesting.
I believe I'm not sure on this, but I believe it's a Native American tradition.
Okay.
I believe her family is Native American.
Wow. That would be, I think, a very beautiful way to do that, because then as the hair grows back, you become aware of that, but time is passing.
Yeah.
And so there's that sense of okay, maybe I look the way I once did, but enough time passed for me to be at that place again. Wow. That's a cool idea.
I like it.
I
do like that one.
Yeah, I do like that one. That one's really cool. Any other traditions?
GoFundMe. That's the new tradition, is that there's just a potluck of money to give to the family, which I actually kind of like. Because, especially whenever you lose a family member, if they were an earner for the family or something like that.
Yeah.
I do really like the idea that there is a way to just kind of put it out into the universe. Anybody who wants to throw $5 into this hat, here's the story of the situation. And I've done that. And it's that always feels good when it's hey, we raised $45,000 for this family.
I think that's great in certain circumstances. I don't know if I'd want to make that as Robert Brownie Jr. Mintz is saying, come up with a new community mourning ritual, because then I wouldn't want to turn it into a moneymaker. As in you
think
big funeral business is going to take over? Calm down,
no,
Tansman.
No, but I'm just saying
it does. What I like about it is it gives other people something that they can do. It gives people something material. Because I always sending flowers to someone's funeral or something like that.
Yeah, right.
When someone passes away, especially if it's someone that is close to someone that I know. Right. If I wasn't especially close with the deceased, I always like sending flowers if they have a service or anything like that.
Right.
But sending money that's useful.
I think it's really useful.
Yeah,
I always am happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that's good. If I were to create a new community-wide mourning tradition, what I would do is I'd make it a tradition to make a donation in someone's name.
Okay.
To a nonprofit. So
yeah.
So if somebody dies, we're gonna pull this money together and we're going to make a donation in that person's name to the food bank.
Boy, that
we're gonna
Nick, I'm gonna tell you right now, if I die, don't fucking do that. That would piss me off. Also, we've already discussed that when I'm dead, it's not my business. But that would piss.
So
that's like giving money to somebody else.
Jim will haunt you.
Yeah, give money to my family. Like I don't like your idea at all. Like if you died and I'm like, let's all raise money and let's send it to the animal shelter.
Okay,
but give it to Laura.
No,
come on.
What you're saying though is okay. But again, like
you want him to give money to his girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay.
If
so
you die?
hypothetically,
no. Well, okay, wait.
Hypothetically, okay. So
not if she killed me. I don't want
all
to
right,
go on the
if
record
Jim
with
dies,
that.
I'm giving Laura $20.
First, you investigate Laura though, because now she has something in on it. She has an incentive.
No, she's getting a crisp new 20.
We're talking about a community-wide thing, something we do for everybody.
Okay.
So hypothetically,
give Laura
the
$20.
lawyer that scammed you for $500 dies.
Yeah.
You want to pool money together to go to his family.
Okay. When he says community though, I don't think he means Las Vegas. I think he means like
friends and family.
The theropods, or like just like a community of people.
I'm just saying, not everybody needs that money.
Yeah.
So like, here's the thing. Like, exactly. So
Yeah.
I don't think I think that.
I think that can be a nice case by case basis.
And that's exactly what I fucking said.
All right, we agree with Jacob.
I missed the case by case basis part.
Yeah.
Thank you for agreeing.
I definitely didn't hear the case by case basis.
I know, because you guys don't fucking listen to me.
I'm listening to you.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said that is a great thing to do in certain circumstances where that's needed. But
right.
if a family is well off,
okay,
and somebody dies, and you're like, oh, here, take some money.
Yeah.
If one of the Waltons die,
I would feel like, if I was in that situation, I'd feel like, okay, you don't have to pay me off.
Yeah.
My family member died. Just say,
I agree.
I miss him.
That was
a good person.
A friend of mine a few years ago. Her young daughter died suddenly. It was hit by a car.
Oh, Jesus.
Very suddenly, and obviously unexpected. And she is not wealthy, but she's plenty well off. She's as well off as I am. She and I are in the same socioeconomic class, and people they just shoveled money at her,
as should happen,
and about $500,000.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She was. It doesn't matter who she was. But she had a lot of people who cared about her, and people wanted to show their love and support and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was an odd thing. I don't know if it was odd for her, because I certainly never discussed this with her. But just looking at it, and disclosure, I put money into this kitty as well. And but it was odd for me looking at it, because it was like, well, my friend doesn't. I don't think she needs this money.
Right.
But
well,
maybe she'll do something good with it. Like she might start a foundation in her daughter's name or something like that.
I think it's also,
I don't know.
You cannot go on disability when a family member dies, right? Mm-hmm. But your ability to continue to constructively do your job may be deeply impacted by the mourning of that. Like in that terrible scenario, if a child is, oh my God.
Oh, you're out of work for
a long
time.
You're done for who knows.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, even if, like, obviously there's some
I know people
families,
who have lost children that, they just don't go back to work.
That's it.
That's it for their life.
The jig is up. Like, what else is there? We're just hoping they stay alive. You know, like this is the worst kinds of things. So when I hear this question, I think that there's some good room to operate on this, because I think, all right, if you're asking me, Jim, psychologically, when you think about what people's needs are in that moment, if you just had your druthers, you can make it however you want. Number one, I think a lot of it's going to be money. I'll be honest with you. Like a strong community, if they had a shared identity and they were like, hey, one of our own just took a big hit.
Yeah.
When one of our own goes down, because the comparison he gives you of like the Jewish tradition and the Christian tradition, I'm thinking of groups of people that are tight-knit enough that they're like, I want to give until it hurts me a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not just throwing $20 in the hat. I'm putting $1,000 in this hat. Like, I'm giving enough that it would hurt me to do it, but I want to help you in a meaningful way.
Here's something that I can do.
Real loss has happened. Like, I want to take it to that notch, right?
And there is an awkwardness, even if it is someone that you deeply love that has lost a loved one. I mean, there is always a bit of an awkwardness in trying to go to them personally.
What do you need?
You feel like you're taking up the time.
Yeah.
You feel like you're just putting an extra strain on the person sometimes.
It is.
I mean, that is hard.
It's selfish. And what's tough is you might want to come to them and say, what are your needs? How can I help
and
you?
It's
it's
best intentions.
Yes, they are, but you can't also expect that person to do it. So here's what I would want. In a perfect world, here's how I would design it. The very first thing, there will be a generous pooling of money. The first portion of that money is to cover funeral expenses.
Sure.
Period. That's number one. The second amount of that money is probably to cover debts, because debt collectors go for your family. And so, like, I don't want the family being scared of things. Now, if this person has some kind of weird astronomical debt, that's not the community's business, right? But there's a second portion of the normal amount of debt relief size.
Right.
And then I think there's a third portion.
If they've got 15, 20 grand in debt.
Let's think about that.
Let's see what we
a
can do.
funeral can cost $5 to $10 grand.
Sure, easy.
Easy. And so, like, depending upon what they're looking for, I would say the first thing we do as a tight-knit community, we are going to pay for that community member's funeral.
Okay.
This will not fall upon the family. That much is done. Second, if we can assist with any debts, we would like to know what they are, and we all work together to do that. So, like, if this person died in the hospital and accrued $60,000 of medical debt on the way out the door, I do not want that falling on their immediate family. I hate that. And so if we were really being a badass community, that would be priority number one, is we'd all come together and go, this is that family's debt. What are we going to do to eliminate it? And that might be a 3-year project. That might be us as a community. If I had my druthers, that could be us saying, we are not going to let this person suffer twice. We will protect them. And so maybe that means that we're all going to agree we're running bake sales all year long, and we're going to chip away at this thing, or we're all going to, do a little bit. I would love to see that. That would be the felt need. And if there's any money to give them so that the person can take time off of work and go through the process, because there is so much administrative work when somebody dies. You've got to contact debtors, you've got to contact banks, you've got to contact Social Security, you've got to do all this footwork to bury somebody. You need all of these certificates of death, these legal documents you have to hunt down in order to go out and end debts and do all sorts of things. It's a pain in the ass, man. You got to call the deed on your house, you got to do all these things just to do the normal administrative stuff. It does not get done for you. And you have to do that despite the fact that you're acutely mourning, because you are the closest next of kin in order to do those things. So I would want the community's first priority to be just a money dump, like give to it till it hurts. If I was designing something that was meant to heal,
I think in some scenarios you should do maybe a charity gift.
If they're
as well,
rich.
In certain scenarios, not in all scenarios, but in certain
Thank you,
ones.
Jacob. That's insightful.
Yeah,
I like the caveat of conditional. I feel like that really adds value and flavor to this. It's just meaningful. I do like the idea of some kind of
have a certain set of skills.
The second thing I would want a certain set of skills. The second thing I would want there to be a designated person who is the family's liaison to the world. Because what happens is the deceased next of kin is the contact for all things. And I don't want that. I really want that person, as much as we can, to be protected, because there's a portion of their life that we can't stop from happening. They're going to have to be an administrator on a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But I would want a designated person in the community to have a role of standing up and saying, I am the liaison for this family now.
It's really nice.
Calls go through me.
It's really nice, I think, when that person can be kind of family maybe once removed.
Right.
So, for instance, when my father-in-law passed away, I became that person.
Yes.
And that was, and it
You're
hurt.
Close enough?
It hurt me that my father-in-law had passed away.
Right.
I had known him for, years and years and years. I loved the man.
Right.
But I was in a better mindset than his widow, his children.
Exactly.
And I was able to deal with that and then just take them, here, sign this. Here, say yes to this.
And you're
this
still
is fine.
family. You're still in this tribe. They
Exactly.
can trust you that if you're walking over and they can't read this document because tears are in their eyes,
It's
they
just
know you are advocating.
sign this real quick. We're taking care of this.
Yes.
We're scratching things off the list.
And if people call, and I like that one person to be like that administrator. That way it's like, look, do not bother these mourning people.
Right.
Do not go too far. I am it. I'm the door that you bring everything to. if you have gifts, if you have cards, if you have well wishes, because too often people try to contact the humans who are suffering, I think in goodwill, trying to be kind, but it is taxing to them to have to put on a civil face with you and say thank you. And that's where I want that Jacob in that situation to kind of say, it all comes to me. I will let them know.
It's so nice to have that.
It's the right thing to do.
It's so nice to have that person.
So I want a designated person to do that role. They might help with the funeral arrangements. They are there to do whatever it takes. And I think this is, again, why I like a big old pot of money that just says help.
I mean, we have wedding planners. Why don't we have
a funeral planner? Well, there are funeral planners, but
oh, well, never mind.
Yeah, funeral planners just for the ceremony.
We answered that question.
$1 million idea.
So
run with that.
All right, I'm gonna switch gears for a second.
Yeah,
because we have talked a lot about the practical side of this. Robert Brownie Jr. Mint's question really kind of has to do with the psychological component of mourning. So let's assume
he didn't write a therapy podcast for post-death financial planning.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Imagine that.
Imagine Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. What are you doing?
We send in your questions. We're going to answer whatever we want.
Yeah.
May not be the question you asked.
Yeah.
No. Results may
so, how would you? Let's assume the practical side of this is already taken care of.
Okay.
What would you design for a community for grief and mourning?
So,
bouncy house.
That's a solid answer. Can't go wrong with that.
Get in there and bounce.
I think that, so far, I think that these practical things we've discussed are psychological. I think that we're protecting the family's felt needs as a community with resources they can use. Not resources they have to entertain, like a casserole. Money.
What I think Jim and I are talking about in all of this stuff is, I think it gives them the space and the time to then go through that grieving process on their own without having to do these other things.
And that designated helper also, again, is a buffer. So I do think that's helpful. Now, but I agree with you. There's another component, which is if I was just looking at this from a ceremonial perspective, one of the things that I think religion does really good, and I'm just global religion, they are the designated groups that ceremonialize life and death milestones. The birth of a child, almost every religion has a way to acknowledge that as a community and to wish well to the family, a christening, whatever you're going to do. Marriages, the formation of family, they almost all have a way to come around that and say, we support this is good, how can we help you? Death, religions seem to have a monopoly on a way to ceremonialize that. And so if I was designing an agnostic, non-religious component to this, I do want to borrow from some of those traditions because I do think that they arrived at those ideas organically based on human expression of mourning and grief. I think it's nice to have a gathering. I do think that that's helpful. Of course, if somebody says they don't want it, that's fine, but I get to do whatever I want in this hypothetical scenario.
So I guess let's just imagine we're doing an M. Night Shyamalan, The Village type thing.
Okay.
All right. It's the three of us. Taking our commune of followers.
Yes.
We're creating a whole new community.
Like I've told you about. Okay. You're just reading from the whiteboard. And there's a whole idea on this.
We are going to be psychology based.
Yeah. It's a cult.
Let's design a mourning ritual.
Okay.
All right.
How would we do it?
First we pee.
Yeah.
Then we eat breakfast.
You want to lead with that.
Not that kind of mourning.
No.
Oh, I see.
Morning. So, okay, in my scenario, I would want a community meeting that, has been planned by that buffer person and everything. I want us to join that meeting in a sense of mourning. I don't want to go the other way with it and do like a celebration of life right away or force joy. I feel like I appreciate the theory of those things. I think, generally speaking, I would design it where this is the event at which you unpack this box. If you have not unpacked it up to this point, this is a designated time and place in which we as a community are going to do that together.
I don't want a celebration of life. I want a funeral.
Yeah.
I want people crying.
I want people ripping their clothes apart.
Uncontrolled in their grief.
Yeah.
Screaming.
Yes.
I want them throwing themselves on the casket, screaming, God, take me instead.
Question, Jacob.
Go on, Nick.
Take me instead.
Does it need to be sincere?
No. That's part of the script.
I better believe it.
You'll be dead.
Yep. My ghost better believe it.
No, I like the same idea, except it's all scripted. And these are roles that you audition for in the lead up to this thing, and you have to really sell it.
But I do like the idea of like doing a period of mourning.
Yeah.
And then a celebration of life being like their next birthday.
Yes. I like
something that comes up later on.
Right.
Where we can say that, then that's when we can, like, okay, the movie Phenomenon.
Yeah, with Phenomenon.
Yeah. John Travolta?
Damn it. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Jesus.
Like they do, they celebrate his birthday. They continue to celebrate his birthday.
Yeah.
After he dies.
I like that
and that's
idea.
kind of like a fun celebration type thing.
Yeah, it's different.
But it's not the mourning piece. It's like
I would steal I love that idea. I would arrange them a little closer. And the only reason why is because with the passage of time, I think you're reopening a wound at some point if you kind of like, depending upon how much time it would take. So like what I would do is I would say, I want the community to come together. I want us to do a designated mourning time. I want that to be formatted. I don't want that to be just willy-nilly. I want people to come in. It's a designated thing. I want a speaker up at front. There was a really good sci-fi series that I really liked by Orson Scott Card, and he had written a hit book called Ender's Game, and it became a movie. The movie's garbage, but it's a very hit book if you're into sci-fi stuff. It's one of the best sellers. But then in a later series, the same character, he adds books to the series, and it's called Speaker for the Dead. And in this, the character who is responsible for the largest genocide in galactic history, as part of like his penance to himself and reality, he becomes a speaker for the dead. And so he travels the galaxy despite time lag. And when he hears that somebody has passed, he travels. And if it's a significant thing, if they've requested a speaker, he will come speak. And what he does is he studies the person's life, top to bottom, interviews everybody they ever met, every family member they've ever had, every place in life they've had a significant footprint. He is permitted to have access to journals, anything private, even that the family's not allowed to look at. It's part of the religion that he's allowed to examine every detail, like a murder homicide detective would. But his goal is to achieve...
Nobody leave. There's been a murder.
I watched that last night. Oh, yeah. We gotta
Which
talk about
one?
First one, Knives Out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought he was doing a Michael Scott.
I was.
Oh, anyway.
Nick knows me so well.
Sorry. All right, to wrap this thing
Jacob,
up.
translator.
Yeah.
So I would have a speaker for the dead. I would have a person whose designated role in that community for this particular thing was to know this person extremely well, or just a person in the community who is a good speaker and has the cadence to do that. They would take on this task of learning from the family, learning from records, learning from the community, everything they can about that person. And then this last telling of their life is more than just platitudes. It's more than just, as we all know, John was a great man and he sure did like the Raiders. I want it to be this very meaningful portrayal of this human in a very candid way for everybody in the community to reflect upon the things they liked about him, the things they wrestled with, to own his humanity with the room, not glossing it over, but also not airing the man's dirty laundry, but just telling his human story, this one last telling.
He had surprising taste in pornography.
His browser history shall forever be deleted. So I would like that. Then, like a day later, or maybe even that evening, I would want the celebration. I would want it to start with that morning, let that day settle, and then I'd want a second, smaller thing that's food and frivolity and cheers. We're raising a glass. We're saying, to our friend so-and-so. And that's where this is where the people speak. Okay. This is where people say, one time he took me out for dinner, blah, blah, blah. And this is meant to be joyful and grateful for the presence of that person in our lives.
So villagers, Jim has spoken. You can be sad for 24 hours.
Oh, no. The same night we're doing it. It's the same night.
You can be sad for 12 hours.
It's not a 12-hour ceremony.
You can be sad for 6 hours.
I think we do the whole thing in 2. I honestly don't want to.
You can be sad for 2 hours.
There will be an intermission, so probably more like 45 and 45. And Gotta have a break. People need to use the restroom.
Snacks will be served.
Well, that's at the later.
By the way, I'm not taking sci-fi recommendations from you.
Why? Oh, because of Battlefield Earth?
That's a fine reason.
When it comes to books, I'm a great authority on this, man. I have all the best books.
That word "great" is doing some real heavy lifting in that sentence.
Whatever. Yeah. Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, thank you for your question.
Didn't we have the chatbot thing?
No, not for this one.
Oh.
I have chatbot for the next two.
Okay.
So thank you for your question. A great one for us to play with. And if you are out there and you'd like to join our cult and have an invitation to our hidden village in the middle of the forest, go to patreon.com/therapy. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss how therapists arrive at their therapeutic modalities with special guest Chatbot GPT, seeing if it can one-up us in this game of wits. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Cindy Ash, Kevin Chamberlain, Ben Stanley, Adam Hathaway, Myra, Lib, and Heyo.
Heyo!
Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. And our trivia this week, in honor of our therapy producers, the theme is, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Me.
Oh, yes! All right, there we go.
Dibs!
These are all real questions.
You have to talk like Regis Philbin, man.
I can't.
Who
These are all
wants
real
to be
questions
a millionaire?
from Who Wants to Be a
good.
Millionaire.
Jim can't either.
So we're going to start with a $32,000 question.
Oh, shit.
Which of these religious observances, Jesus Christ.
Nailing
Okay,
it.
let's start over. Back to one. Who wants to be a millionaire?
Which of these God damn it,
Back to
religious observances
Who wants to be a millionaire?
lasts for the shortest period of time
Okay.
during the calendar year? A, Ramadan, B, Diwali, C, Lent, or D, Hanukkah?
I will be a gentleman and let Jacob go first.
Whenever I hear that sound.
Who wants to be a millionaire?
I thought that was going to be the millionaire.
I like that one better.
It was
to be
close.
honest. There it is.
All right.
Well,
there
all
we
right. Right on time.
Found it. They're all just labeled millionaire.
go. Keep that queued up.
We will need it today. All right, Jacob, your options are of the four holidays,
of
which
these
is the
religious
shortest?
observances
Got it.
last for the shortest period of time?
And the answers are?
Ramadan, Diwali, Lent, and Hanukkah.
Diwali is, according to The Office, the Festival of Lights.
That is Hanukkah. But keep going. You're doing great.
Hanukkah is 8 Crazy Nights.
It is
according to Adam Sandler.
The movie of the same name,
Yep.
which is a great cartoon.
It is pretty good.
It is a solid cartoon.
Lent is found in your belly button.
Yep.
I believe so.
Wait, was Lent an answer?
Yes, it is.
Lent,
Oh, but there is the season of Lent, isn't there?
which is inaugurated by Fat Tuesday.
Yeah. And that is okay. That is longer than Hanukkah. So Lent is out.
Lent
All
is
right.
out.
All
Takes
right.
Lent off the board.
All right. Has Jim answered yet?
Nope. I'm being a gentleman because I know.
Let
the
me
answer.
X some answers out.
Yeah.
Diwali is just a wild card for me. I'll go Ramadan.
Ooh, he goes with the Ramadan. Well, all right. So it's definitely not Lent because that's 40 days.
That's why I X'd that one
If
out.
you remember the Josh Hartnett movie,
I didn't remember if it was 30 or 40
days,
days, but I knew it was a lot of days.
it's a lot of days. Ramadan is a month long.
Okay.
So we're probably going to have to take that one off the board. I'm unsure of how long Diwali goes, but Hanukkah's 8. I feel like Diwali wants to be similar to Ramadan. I feel like it's going to be like a month, so I'm going to go with Chanukah. Final answer. Wait a minute. Do we get to use the power-ups from the show?
Nope.
Shit. Oh, thank you. Damn.
You're both wrong. It's Diwali.
Fuck!
Oh!
Is Diwali a day?
I don't know.
Damn, you really have all the sound effects. That's really
awesome.
impressive.
Yeah, keep those. All right.
That's really useful.
We got 3 more of these
Oh, good.
because we've got next episode too.
Oh, good.
All right. So this is the one where after our answers, we're going to play the chat bot. And so it's going to be the MP3 titled Modalities probably. But anyway, we'll come to that in a minute. Here's the question. Identifying your modalities by Sarah Smith.
There isn't one labeled that.
Excellent. Fantastic. I will find it in a second.
Oh, no, I found it.
There you go.
I found it.
Don't play it yet.
No, I'm not.
Once that... Oh, wait. No, wait. Where is it? Sarah Smith. Okay. One that I've had looming in the back of my head. How did you guys come up or come to terms with your therapeutic modalities? And how has that changed throughout your professional careers? I'm making the assumption that your prior work in addictions treatment has formed your therapeutic modality of choice. But what other factors influenced you to look into other methods, or what has pulled you to integrate other therapeutic approaches into your work? This question comes as I am currently trying to identify which therapeutic modalities I want to try as I get closer to my graduate school practicum. I'm currently leaning toward existential, humanistic, and Gestalt. From one of your beloved producers from the Pacific Northwest, Sarah Smith, therapist in training.
Okay.
I love that question. My little sister just started her first grad school courses, and right away they're starting her on theories of counseling. And so she sent me her reading list, and they had to pick 2 books from a list of primary books, like all the originals. So like Man's Search for Meaning, On Becoming a Person, just like all the old school primary titles. So Freud's work. So it's pretty cool. They each had to pick 2 originals and read over those. Solution focused. A lot of great stuff. Narrative therapy, Michael White. So I like this. This is a great question.
It is. A lot of it, Sarah, is going to be trial and error. You just try to learn as much as you can, or try to get kind of a Reader's Digest version. I guess kind of like Jim's sister is doing, you know, getting and that doesn't mean you're competent to use it. It just means you get a little taste of it, a little understanding, so that if it's something you're interested in, you can research it further.
Yeah, which in your counseling theories class, they're going to cover.
Yeah, and then you just try things out and you see how it works. I started out with slap therapy,
and
it did not work very well.
Okay.
But I stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make sure it didn't work.
To be sure that the slapping would be effective.
Yeah. But no, the things that I guess if I were to identify 2 primary modalities that I use, it's solution-focused brief therapy and cognitive behavioral.
Okay.
Cognitive behavioral just works really well with addictions treatment.
It does, yeah.
And so that just seems to go really well. But I love everything about solution-focused brief therapy. And I first learned about that when I was in graduate school. We had one of our professors was also in private practice, and he used a lot. And I think part of it was just because of his level of enthusiasm with it.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time talking about it. And it's just one of those things that I learned a lot about, and being able to see it work in practice.
Yeah.
And just being able to implement it, seeing how people respond to it very positively. It just, that for me kind of won me over with that one.
Yeah. So I agree with you, and I'll tell my own story about how I arrived at theories, but solution-focused brief therapy was invented, I think, with several concepts at the forefront of their minds, which I really liked. One, which I don't like, but I think is useful, was that insurances were not paying for therapy. And so they looked at it and said, you're not going to get a year's worth of therapy. You're not going to get and Freud, his model very much was living on this idea that this would be long-term, that we would be able to get those gains. A lot of the theories had really long-term thinking in mind, but with the insurance payer model, you weren't ever getting that. And so that was something the theorists really put forward, is like, we've got to design something that is brief. And that's a big part of how they wanted to do it. The other thing that I really appreciated from that theory was going back to Socratic questioning. A lot of theories really stopped using that very much. And solution-focused therapy really came back to this idea of discussion being part of the intervention, but to guide that discussion in a very strategic, what they call solution-focused way, to help the patient realize that they already have so much information and that they already can overcome their obstacles, and to help them engineer their own unique approach to their problem, but using their own playbook, which I've always liked, because it really, it starts from a position of respect for the patient. And I know that really appeals to both of us. Neither of us feels very good entering to the relationship as the guru. Neither of us likes that chair. We really want the patient to get empowered because we want them to not need us eventually and to fly on their own. And so solution-focused therapy, I think, runs with that tenet as well. Like you, Nick, that was super attractive to me in grad school. I was obsessive over how I was picking theory because I looked at it like I was going to study a martial art for like the rest of my life. Like I looked at that theories class, like looking at each of these and thinking, you've got to get this right, Jim, because if you're going to do this, you got to be really good at one thing. And maybe if you're really good at that one thing, then you'll be an okay therapist. And so I remember learning about Adlerian family system or individual therapy. I thought that had really interesting ideas about like birth order and constellations and like I learned about Freud, and I struggled with Freud immediately because at the time it already felt outdated, and he took such an authoritarian view, and he had so much like nomenclature about like id and ego and superego and just so much theory that it just didn't seem to be talking about the practical application of what's going to happen for the patient. And so I didn't like it because it felt too heady, young.
The thing that I didn't like about it was that it put the therapist on such a high pedestal.
Absolutely.
As in, like, I know what's wrong with you. Here's what's wrong with you. This
Right.
is what you need to do. Which I didn't really, I don't know. It
Didn't appeal
really
to you at the
appeal
time.
to me. Yeah.
Well, and also the other thing that was frustrating for me as a grad student was I remember looking at it and going, I want you to tell me what to do with this patient. And the answer at the time didn't feel good for it to be, let them free associate while I interpret what they're sharing. A, I didn't feel good about me being the boss of what their truth is. And B, it felt too passive to me. I didn't like that idea. And so as I remember going through grad school and looking at each of these theories, I had to do a lot of learning on family systems theory because my master's was MFT. I hated it the whole time. I was like, this sucks. Like, I liked the idea of your family of origin greatly influencing who you become. I agreed with that. I liked the idea of roles in the family, of stereotypes, like the hero child and the troublemaker, and the scapegoat, and like all. And I appreciated lost child. Yep. I liked that idea. I appreciated a lot of the theory of how we structure. I liked some of the interventions. But then a lot of it also started to get into kind of hocus pocusy, kind of like, boy, you really are trying to inject a lot of guesses on this. And it just felt like it was prescribing too much about the problem. And I was always obsessed with the felt problem of the patient. When I walk into therapy, I have a problem. I need help with this problem. I don't want to start talking about my family of origin when my problem is I have anxiety right now. You know, like, or I'm drinking too much right now. Like, I don't want to go on the scavenger hunt of deeper meaning, right? And that was another thing, like, Jung didn't appeal for me for that reason. Aaron Beck and cognitive behavioral therapy at the time, it felt so ubiquitous that I wasn't interested in it as a grad student. And I read it over and I was like, this just seems true. Like, it didn't even feel like a theory to me. I remember reading it and thinking, yeah, this is like questioning your world around you, right? And like I didn't exactly resonate with it right away. Rhett, like REBT and RET, Albert Ellis, those things. I took things from it, but it also just seemed like slow motion not guessing, but slow motion thought. Get to the rational conclusion, right? Identify what's irrational, talk your way through that, land on good things.
Any theories that you got into that were like short-lived phases?
Yes, existentialism.
Oh.
So when I first came upon existentialism, and it's Irvin Yalom, but also Viktor Frankl. That's the other guy. So Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And when I started reading Viktor Frankl's theory, mostly in the Reader's Digest, like in your grad school textbook, I remember being like, oh, this is it. Existentialism. Like, I was into Soren Kierkegaard. I was into postmodernism. I was already into like deconstruction philosophy, and they were talking about how this was the first true postmodernist theory. And I was like, this is going to be my jam. This is going to make so much sense to me. He's going to talk about the essence of man, and that makes sense. It was really resonant. But as I read the theory, I was at a loss to find one goddamn thing to do with it. And I remember staring at this, like, this would be a great religion, but like, I don't know what to do with this.
Mine was choice theory, William Glasser.
Glasser, reality therapy. Yeah.
Choice theory.
Went through a little fling. You had your little grad school fling with Glasser, huh?
Yep.
What happened?
I don't know. I think as I started like trying to apply it, it just felt very
That's schemas, right?
No, it's really, yeah. I mean, it's about like, so one of the techniques that he would do is like he would, if he's meeting with somebody who's depressed or somebody who's schizophrenic and having voices, he would just say, okay, for the next hour, I just want you to pretend that you don't
like
have
it's
it.
not there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then basically the idea is that the person is learning to kind of control everything
acting
that's happening.
As if,
And he's saying that, and one of the things they said is like, people aren't depressed, they depress. They choose to depress.
Okay.
So his idea is that like you're doing things that create this outcome.
Right. So there's a relationship between what you think is happening to you and what you are doing to make things happen.
Yeah. You're kind of facilitating this environment.
Right.
And I think some of the things that some of it kind of resonated with me, but then there were other parts of it that were just kind of like, it almost kind of felt a little harsh, or like we're not
wasn't very sensitive to the person.
We're not really being mindful of what this person is experiencing, what they're actually going through, and we're just kind of discrediting it.
Yeah, and that's going to fix them. Is if I convince them that they're wrong. Yeah. That's exactly why Viktor Frankl's theory didn't work for me. And it was hard because if you read Man's Search for Meaning, it's a 2-part book. The first half is Viktor Frankl telling you the story of how he survived Auschwitz, how everybody in his entire family, his children and his wife, were murdered in front of him in the Holocaust. And he tells this incredible tale of what it was like for him to go through this and how he landed on one firm conclusion. The only thing the Nazis could not take away from him was his choice of attitude. They could starve him, beat him, and they did. They could work him to death, and they did. They could just decide at any moment to just take his life. They could take everything from him. They decided whether he pooped and peed. But the only one freedom that he really had was he could choose how he would respond to that reality. He could choose happiness, essentially. And it's a really fascinating book because that becomes the kernel of existentialism or existential philosophy, what he really called logotherapy, which is the second half of the book, is his unpacking of logotherapy. What the problem was for me was just like reality therapy. I looked at that and said, this is profound. I am a changed person for having read this, and this will resonate with me for the rest of my life. I will never say this to a patient. I will never look at a patient in their suffering and talk about how they can choose to just smile in the face of pain. Yeah. I appreciate the implications of this. It's hard for me to use it right away. Now, if you're an existentialist psychotherapist, you hear me saying this and you're cringing because you're like, that is absolutely not how I use that. I know, but as a grad student, reading it, trying to understand it, I got stuck. I thought it was really useful breaking down the fundamental tenets of human experience and talking about human longings. I thought he was right on the money, but I couldn't find answers. I thought he did a great job of describing what's underneath it all, but I didn't know what to do with any of that information because just teaching people about what's underneath it all didn't solve the problem.
I didn't stick with reality therapy a whole lot because why would you do that when you have slap therapy?
Yeah,
and so it just made
there
sense.
For you. Just hit them.
Yeah, I'll just go back to what I did before.
So interesting.
Do what you know.
There it is. Nail it. So interestingly for me, I stepped over all those. I got to person-centered therapy. Person-centered therapy a la Carl Rogers. Today is my bread and butter. It is the fundamental of who I am. It is the house that I am built in. I have windows and doors that are solution-focused brief therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. I have other tools that I borrow from all sorts of therapies. I am built inside of Carl Rogers' person-centered therapy. In grad school, I was bored to tears reading that. I remember reading this and thinking, what is this? It isn't even a theory. It doesn't even have cool things. It doesn't have any techniques to do. It has no interesting interventions. But the book kept saying like, well, Rogers is considered to be the foundation of all modern psychotherapy today because he talked about the therapeutic alliance. And so I'm reading this thinking, oh, okay, so he taught us to listen to people? Who the fuck cares? And I remember as a grad student just being like, bah, this is boring. I want to get to like existentialism and like cool shit. And so I flipped right through it. Fast forward later in my career, going back and revisiting his collected works, I had arrived at the same conclusions he was telling me in grad school, but I did that through the years of experience of doing the job. And that's whenever I realized this guy was right the whole time. And fast forward, modern science completely validates everything he's ever said. We have the common factors now. He is right about what therapy fundamentally should be. So today, that's the theory. But in grad school, I was attracted to solution-focused, which I still carry with me today. Attached to solution-focused, I would say motivational interviewing, which I don't know is a theory. It's a process. It's a method.
It's the cousin to solution-focused in a way.
Yeah,
it's kinda like,
yeah. It definitely works with it, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think you can't have one without the other. I think
Right,
motivational
yeah.
lives inside of it,
Yeah.
which is a really cool technique, especially for addictions treatment, guys.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us eventually learn MI
Yeah.
and can incorporate that because you have to. You have to get through stages of change. You have to teach people, get their readiness up for them to go through something. And so that's something I wish everybody would train in. But I think I'm with you. I would say number one is person-centered. And I arrived at that because fundamentally what Rogers teaches is that the change agent in therapy is when we as two humans can bond and create a genuine relationship that is characterized by an unlimited valuing of you, the patient. You will conclude that your therapist genuinely sees you for who you are and likes you. And it won't be fake. It will not be a facade. Not a drop of it will be insincere. I, the therapist, will adopt a worldview and train myself to seek to understand you to the bone. And in my understanding of you, I will intentionally bias myself toward you to see you as the hero of the story and somebody I really want to see succeed. And even if I see you make a mistake or do something deliberately bad, I will still fundamentally see you as trying your best and just mistaken here and desiring good things. And so through that process, Carl Rogers creates the foundation of all therapy. I still use other techniques, but the foundation of it has those components. Genuine, sincere relationship formed by a desire to see you succeed and a desperation to understand you to the bone, to get you so well that if you needed one human to represent you to the world, you could trust me to accurately get up and tell your story, and you would be listening the whole time going, that dude actually knows who I am better than anybody. That's my first goal of therapy. So I've loved that theory. I think the other one's really helpful. I use CBT mostly for anxiety work. I found it to be my favorite tool for anxiety because anxiety is so built on misperception and your brain getting the wrong idea about things. And CBT is designed to break that. And so I love that as just a tool mostly. I don't know that I live inside of it as a theory.
Yeah.
I don't look at everything as a CBT problem of cognitive distortions.
Right.
Anxiety, yes, that's a slam dunk. But like depression, I don't like to treat depression with CBT because it feels dismissive.
So I guess to answer the question, I think I would start definitely with kind of a Reader's Digest version and then be able to, if you have that practicum experience, that internship, that's kind of your opportunity to just kind of try some things out. And then I think with experience, you just begin to identify and learn what works, what doesn't. You'll get to feel some things out and feel for yourself like, you know what, I've had success with this. I like this one. Or you know what, folks aren't really responding well to this one. Or this one just doesn't seem to fit my style. So that would be my answer.
They say that when it comes to picking a theory, a lot of it has to do with your personality.
Yeah.
And I actually believe that.
I do too.
I don't think, and just so you know, Sarah, and for all grad students out there, one of the most interesting things about psychotherapy is that no theory has been proven to be superior to any of the others. There's ones that have a great track record treating certain things, like CBT is very effective with anxiety. It just is. It's a better tool than most. DBT is very effective with borderline personality disorder, right?
EMDR and trauma.
EMDR and trauma, right? Yeah. And so we have different ones that tend to showcase with different problems, but there is no one theory, especially the theories that are attempting to do a global analysis of the problem and have a big picture. There is no theory that has been proven superior to the others. They are all equal, which is why Carl Rogers ended up being right, because his not a theory was more about here's how you do therapy, not here's how therapy works or here's what the problem is or here, no. Here's how you do this, and if you're doing it, change happens. But you got to start with doing it. And he was the engine. I think he had it right. But your personality actually matters a lot to this. I think for Nick and I, solution focus matches our personality a lot, because we tend to be very comfortable in the here and now. We don't mind going on deep dives with you, but we're also very interested in what your real life perception is today, the problems that you're facing today, and we also tend to default to being encouragers and finding your confidence and building you up and getting you moving again. So yeah, it matches our personalities a great deal. I'm a big old softy who just wants to hug everybody, and so Carl Rogers' shit about understanding people and connecting with them resonated with me too. I think all that stuff comes back to theory.
But no one wants to hear what we have to say.
Let's hear what ChatGPT has to say.
There are a few factors that a psychotherapist may consider when selecting a modality to use with their patients. First, the patient's needs and goals. The therapist should consider the specific goals and needs of the patient, as well as any presenting issues or challenges. This will help to determine which modality is most appropriate. Second, the therapist's training and expertise. The therapist should choose a modality that aligns with their own training and areas of expertise. Third, the available evidence and research. The therapist should consider the available evidence and research on the effectiveness of different modalities in treating the patient's specific issues. Fourth, the patient's preferences. It's important to consider the patient's preferences and whether they feel comfortable with the chosen modality. It's important for the patient to feel comfortable and engaged in the therapy process. Finally, the therapist's personal style. The therapist's personal style and approach can also be a factor in selecting a modality. It's important for the therapist to choose a modality that aligns with their own values and beliefs. There are a few...
Oh,
damn. All right. Some of that felt pretty generic, but also not wrong. Like, you should follow the evidence. Yeah, no, I think we agree with that. If any of the theories we like were, just disproven or not indicated for a particular thing, we wouldn't do it. Like, SFBT is not indicated for trauma. You shouldn't use it at all. That would be dismissive and dangerous. We wouldn't, right? So I agree with that. I like how it mentioned styles. I think that was correct. I think also, I don't know if you've bumped into this too much, patients will sometimes show up and go, I specifically want to use this. Mm-hmm. Usually it's CBT. Usually they will say that. I'll hear them say, I'm looking for a CBT therapist, which I always kind of internally chuckle at because I'm like, where'd you read this? Like Wikipedia? Like, what is it? But then I just know they're...
Or are they just looking for some weed?
That could have been it.
It's not quite right.
It's T. It's not D. It's a T, but you're not wrong. Good job,
looking
AI.
for CBT and somebody who can treat dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so the AI, I'm going to give it half a point on that one. It was not bad. And it did this in under a minute and gave 5 bullet points, which is much better than our... bullshitty.
I give it no points.
All right. You know what? I'm still impressed that a random robot...
I didn't listen to it.
I just asked it that question and it got it. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are talking about the importance of getting an accurate diagnosis. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Oh, shit. That's me.
Today's episode is brought to you by Robert Brownie Jr. Helpline. So peaceful. Malia. Oh, God. Adam Hathaway. Mike Helm. Liz. Oh, wait. I'm reading the wrong list.
It doesn't matter. Go with it.
Figures. That's so ironic.
All right. Back to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Yeah, where's your goddamn sound effects now?
Where's your God now?
Where is your God? Where's your millionaire now?
For 125,000 imaginary dollars. Construction of which of these famous landmarks was completed first? A. The Empire State Building. B. Royal Albert Hall. C. Eiffel Tower. Or D. Big Ben Clock Tower. If you'd like to join the Therapy Producers and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up.
Damn, dude. Do you know what the Royal Albert thing is?
Yeah, it's the Royal Albert Hall.
Shut up.
It's a big concert hall.
Yeah.
It's a real thing?
Yeah.
Wow, I assume it's real. Which country is it in?
It's in London, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's in London. I'm pretty sure it's London.
So it's asking whether that or Big Ben got built first?
Well, there's
and
4.
other things.
Jesus Christ.
All right, I'm going to go first this time.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I definitely am going to rule out the Sears Tower because that shit, there's no way. That is modern.
And it wasn't one of the options. So that was a good idea to rule that one out.
Well, I'm glad
I was really confused.
Erred on the side of safety.
I had already ruled out the Sears Tower.
Let's rule out this building that we're in right now.
Yeah,
let's rule that one out too.
Yeah,
Jim's
probably
house.
the one in Dubai.
Only about Jim's house.
Only about 8 billion more structures to eliminate.
Take away the Dubai one. That can't be it. All right, so Empire State Building, I'm going to throw that one out because I think King Kong, that was like 19. I don't think so. I think that the Eiffel Tower is going to predate that because why would the Eiffel Tower? Who would give a fuck about the Eiffel Tower if the Empire State Building was already up? So I don't think it's that.
Okay.
Not sure I understand that logic, but go on.
Nope.
I saw something on TikTok the other day that said from the building of the pyramids, the only building of that size to be constructed between the pyramids and modern era was the Eiffel Tower. And then after the Eiffel Tower, then man had the technology to build things of that size again. And so that gives me the impression that I think Big Ben is a big thing. I don't know if it's as tall as the Eiffel Tower, but I think it's pretty big.
What is the question that we're trying to answer?
The first one.
Which
Just
of
the
these
oldest.
landmarks was completed first?
So I'm stuck on Eiffel Tower
completed.
or
so
this
that's
concert
probably
hall.
part of it.
Okay.
Because then I think concert hall is not impressive. So what? You built a big concert hall. Why is that a big deal? Like they could build that shit today or back then. I don't know. It's not tall, right? Is it tall?
I mean, it's a concert
It's
hall.
pretty big.
Concert halls aren't tall. They're wide. I don't think it would have been hard to build a wide building. I'm going to go with that one. I want the Royal Andrew thing.
Royal Albert Hall.
That one.
That's what I'm leaning towards as well. I'm trying to remember when the Empire State Building was actually built, though.
Dude, there's no way that was
Because Royal
early.
Albert Hall is 1800s.
Okay. Oh, I feel good about that one.
But I think the Empire State Building is too.
Dude, no way. Come on. There was like cowboys in the 1800s, man. They weren't.
Oh, yeah. Did you consider the Cowboys?
I
were
did
cowboys.
not. In fairness, Nick, I didn't think about the Cowboys.
Jacob,
Come on,
you
man.
ignorant slut.
there was cowboys. There's like Wyatt Earp and shit in the 1800s.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the Empire State Building was
Dude,
built.
that's 1900s for sure. That's got to be like World War One.
I'm just trying. No. It's 1900s.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say the words. I'm trying to picture the film of the construction.
And then there was.
of
And
the
then
Empire
you
State Building.
realize, oh wait,
There was film.
There was film. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got 1900. Okay, so 1900 for that.
Take that one off the board.
It was Royal Albert Hall, Eiffel Tower, and what else?
Big Ben.
Big Ben. Oh shit, I don't know when Big Ben was built.
Dude, I feel like that one's pretty old. I feel like that's pretty important too. Because like the Big Ben.
I'm Big Ben or Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, it's got to be. Man, I don't know. Eiffel Tower feels pretty.
I want to say Royal Albert. I'll go Big Ben to be
Keep it interesting.
to be different because I think the other two are newer.
I'm
but I
leaning toward
don't
Eiffel
know.
Tower, but I'm going to go with the Hall because it just seems less impressive than the Eiffel Tower. But I'll bet you that Eiffel Tower is pretty competitive.
I bet I mean, Eiffel Tower's old.
I feel like it is, man. I feel like that one's up there.
Okay, so Royal Albert Hall
Yes.
for Jim.
Yep, and I'm going Big Ben.
It is Big Ben.
Son of a bitch!
Oh!
Really?
Oh
Yes.
He's just there. It is. He's got the yes on that.
Yes, Big Ben was completed in 1859.
When was Empire State Building finished?
Let's see.
During the time of the Cowboys, which now that I think about it, Shanghai Knights, they're building Big Ben.
I want to say 1920s. Oh,
Okay.
1931.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
It's 1920s-ish.
I should have relied on my Owen Wilson, Jackie Chan movie knowledge. That would have solved it.
Eiffel Tower completed in 1889.
Oh, that's right there, man.
Oh, wow.
That is very competitive. All right. So $1 million
go.
to Jacob. I
That's
believe.
right.
Or what does he get? 125,000?
125,000.
So wait, if you miss one though, you lose all the previous money, right? Just like in the real game.
Sure. It's
Yeah.
imaginary money that means nothing, so yeah.
I like
Let's go with it.
All right, getting an accurate diagnosis from Anonymous. So, I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I've been going to therapy for about 4 years. I've switched therapists plenty of times, mostly because I didn't feel much improvement, nor a clear, helpful understanding of what I'm going through. Although I'm aware that therapy is just a tool for me to understand myself, and I started going actually to get some guidance on how to deal and heal, but it felt like I was only making progress when I'm doing my own research outside of therapy, while eventually only using the sessions to express myself out loud to someone without worrying about their input. So far, all my therapists try to do during sessions is deal with the different symptoms I have, like anxiety, depression, educational focus, procrastination, and paranoia, without getting to any root issues of why or what is behind all of them, which I know there's a lot to deal with in one plate, but having no progress with any of them after 4 years didn't make any sense. I've been prescribed all sorts of antidepressants, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, and don't get me wrong, they do work for a while, but it just because I'd get too excited about starting a new medication and how it might help me that I get a burst of motivation to function better, but as soon as that hope and excitement fades, I go back to how I was, and sometimes worse. And yes, I addressed this to my psychiatrist, and all he said is that it's unnecessary to want a diagnosis and try to label myself when all that matters is dealing with the symptoms, but it genuinely feels like I'm walking around in circles. Anyway, for some reason, my TikTok For You page was always filled with ADHD-related posts, and I found funny and extremely relatable things, so I insisted that I get tested for ADHD regardless of everyone I addressed this concern to, saying that I do not fit the criteria according to their observations. So I went to 2 ADHD specialists in my clinic, and after getting tested twice, with both of them agreeing that I do have ADHD, I started taking Concerta, and I say this wholeheartedly, I've never felt more alive. However, I'm still worried that it's all in my head, and I somehow projected false symptoms, hoping to finally understand myself. All I want to say is, does getting diagnosed really matter? Will it help me understand myself better and decide on what treatment I want to do or take? Or am I being too concerned with a need to label myself so I can finally, as dumb as it sounds, excuse the mess I'm in mentally? Because it sure feels like it. Thanks, Anonymous.
Are they still doing treatment?
I get the feeling they are. I get the feeling that they're still in therapy, and I get the feeling that they still have a psychiatrist, and now they're taking ADHD medicine.
Yeah. First of all, I would validate your concerns, as far as, or your desires, I should say, validate your desires to want to have a diagnosis. That is important to a lot of people, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think sometimes we can get too focused on the diagnosis and not focus enough on just dealing with the symptoms. I think we talked about that in one of our most recent episodes. And I do think that sometimes that becomes problematic, but I can also acknowledge that sometimes hearing a diagnosis can bring a lot of relief to people.
Yeah.
Because they hear that and then they say, okay, it's not a mystery anymore. There's a name for it. We know what we're doing now. And that just hearing that can be just very reassuring.
Yeah. So one of the things we've talked about in some of the deep dives, and again, we do a lot of extra content, and you're welcome to it. It's on patreon.com/therapy. Throw some money in the hat, and you'll get access to it. And we have a full library of all kinds of deep dives into different topics. As I've joked about on the show, but is a real fact. I did a 6-hour deep dive on ADHD, which again feels cruel now looking back at it, but was exhaustive and really took you through all the information, which I think is useful. So anyway, bringing some of that information from there to here, let's talk about diagnosis. Mental health diagnoses work differently than physical or medical health diagnoses. And we've talked about this on the show before, but to reiterate it, if you go into the doctor and you say, I have pain in my stomach, I'm having all this pain in my stomach, you're very interested in the doctor being able to figure out what is causing the pain in your stomach. Because if you have diverticulitis, like I do, that means that you have little cavities in your intestinal lining, and that requires a certain kind of treatment to solve that problem. If you have, God forbid, a cancer, then that requires a whole different treatment. You might just have indigestion. You might have a hernia. You might have any number of things that's causing this. You might have an allergy. You might be lactose intolerant. There's any number of things that could be causing the exact same symptom. So in the medical world, a diagnosis is to parse the symptoms to discover the cause. And that is important because once we know what is actually causing this, now we can formulate a treatment that addresses that. The treatment for diverticulitis is fundamentally different than the treatment for lactose intolerance or any other intestinal damage that isn't diverticulitis. Mental health fundamentally works differently, okay? It didn't start that way. In the DSM-1 and 2, there was still an emphasis on cause to effect, okay? But there was a changeover in the history of psychology where we stopped trying to describe the problems by cause. So in the ADHD deep dive, we talk about how the original diagnosis label for ADHD was called hyperkinetic condition of childhood. And other labels for it in DSM-1 in the very beginning were things like mild brain damage. And you think, geez, that's a really weird way to describe ADHD, mild brain damage. But they were trying to say, we think mild brain damage is causing this behavior. So they were not describing the behavior. They were describing what they thought was the cause. But as you can imagine in psychology, that quickly became unhelpful. Because, it's always in the brain. Like, I don't know which part it is, and so what are we going to do? We're going to describe parts of the brain that we think relate to this?
Something's not working in the brain. Describes a lot of conditions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. How is it helpful? Because in mental health, we can't reach in and treat the primary thingy. It doesn't work like that. So mental health went through a transformation. We started diagnosing based on clusters of symptoms. And so we have a fundamentally backward approach to diagnosis than the medical people do. The medical people tell you what's causing pain in your stomach. Mental health says, tell me more about the pain. I would like to make the pain stop. Because we cannot go in and find the original cause. So all of our diagnoses are descriptions of problems. They are symptom situations. The definition of anxiety is a specific set of experiences that grow beyond normal human proportions to create great problems in a person's life. The solution for the anxiety is not to reach into the sympathetic nervous system, which is, yes, the actual physical cause of anxiety, and somehow change its course of action. We can't do that. We have medicines that can tamper that thing down and slow it down, but we can't undo the sympathetic nervous system. So our treatment is to help you manage and mitigate the experiences that make the diagnosis possible. Our goal is to reduce your experiences so significantly that you no longer meet criteria for the diagnosis, so we can call it in remission, or that you're managing it really well if it's a chronic condition. So some of your symptoms that you've described, I've had paranoia, I've had anxiety, I've had depression. Nobody can tell me the fundamental thing that's causing it. Well, Anonymous, in mental health land, that they're not lying to you. We really don't feel that we can do that. We may notice other things and say, we've discovered that you had childhood trauma. That greatly influences the things we're seeing. Instead of anxiety, we may say, you know what? Don't diagnose anxiety. Diagnose PTSD. Why? Because now I know that these reactions that they're having are not general anxiousness. They are reactions to specific stimuli. That fits this criteria. They are more in the PTSD camp than anxiety. There's times when we'll switch your diagnosis based on that, and we may discover fundamental underlying things. But still, our diagnostics are going to focus on symptoms, not underlying cause. Because in mental health, we don't know that we have access to that. And also, it kind of doesn't help us be helpful to others because we can't reach underneath it all. Now, part of the common parlance of ADHD talk is part of the marketing campaign for the medicines and the treatments that go along with ADHD is starting to frame it as a fundamental first cause. They're saying, oh my goodness, it wasn't that you had anxiety, it wasn't that you had depression, it wasn't that you had any other problem, it was that you have ADHD brain. You are a fundamental person at this level, and if you could have just understood that, all the rest made sense. That is a gross misrepresentation of how mental health works and how diagnostics work. You can absolutely still have anxiety and have ADHD. You can absolutely have ADHD and no anxiety. You can absolutely have depression and or any of the others. They're all independent of each other. ADHD's symptom description are so relatable that you could read them out loud And almost everybody you know would say, I relate to every single word of that. What makes it a diagnosis is that it's those normal human patterns that we see among all the Homo sapiens, or a great majority of the Homo sapiens, exaggerated to such an extent that it now causes interference and harm in the person's life. And those harms are specific. It's not the harms of anxiety. It's not the harms of depression. It's not the harms of adjacent paranoia. They are very specific harms that have to do with an inability to perform in an educational environment, a social environment, an occupational environment, and an inability to follow through on tasks and complete things. It is very specific. But it is not considered a first cause. It is being represented that way. So, do you have ADHD? As I say in my deep dive, in no way, shape, or form do I want to speak to that. I don't feel qualified to do it. I haven't assessed you. There is a very elaborate process if you would like to go through complete assessment. But as I say in the ADHD deep dive, I'm not even super interested in that because I don't care. I don't want to exhaustively go through this process that lands on diagnosing you with ADHD. The definition of ADHD has changed every 10 years for the last 5 editions of the stupid book. So it could change in the next revision. In DSM-6, you may no longer have ADHD by the definition of the thing. So that's why I'm not obsessed about the label or the diagnosis, because I think over-focusing on that can cause us to get lost. And the last thing I'll say about this is that part of the discussion we had in that deep dive is we're seeing this hyper-inflation of people being diagnosed with ADHD, especially in America. We're seeing up to 23% of kids being diagnosed with it. We're seeing double the international numbers of adults being diagnosed with it. We're seeing more Americans getting ADHD medicines, such as methylphenidate, the one that you talked about, Concerta, which is an amphetamine. We're getting so many adults now that are getting these medicines and getting access to these medicines that there is now a global shortage of the medication. So why is that happening? Well, one of the things that we've noticed is that the screening process is very light. It's self-report. We just ask you, tell us about your life. And if you've looked up anything about ADHD, it's very natural to have been influenced by that information, as you implied in your question, so much so that we know that 60% of self-report evaluations for ADHD are false positives. They're not even reliable. Again, patreon.com/therapy. Get into the ADHD deep dive to really hear more about this. What I'm sharing with you is not to invalidate your conclusions.
If you make it all the way through, you don't have it.
That's right. Yeah, that's the test. There you go. At the very end, the last thing I say is congratulations, you've proven you don't have it. You've gotten this far. That's not true. So my last thought on this is I'm not giving you all this information to invalidate or question your diagnosis. You have been evaluated twice, and for all purposes that matter, you have been concluded to have the symptoms that we refer to in shorthand as ADHD. You should not misperceive that as I have been identified as a type of person at my base. The majority of ADHD cases go into remission. So we are not trying to get you to think about this as you are a type of person. You are blue or yellow or green, and that is your fundamental personality type or a fundamental brain style. It's really being portrayed that way in the world right now, and I think there's a lot of help for that. I think it gives people a sense of belonging. I think it gives people access to tools that are shared and shared support, and I think there's so many positives, but it's accidentally communicating a false narrative about what ADHD is, what diagnosis and mental health is. So when you talk about taking this medicine, you're saying, look, I'm taking it, I'm feeling great on it, it's working. Wonderful. Anonymous, that's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. It sounds like it's solving a real problem in your life. It sounds like under the supervision of your medical team and your therapeutic team, everybody's concluded that this is in your best interest and it's going well. Your question is, I have a habit of taking medicines for a little while, feeling a boost of enthusiasm and joy from finding a new solution, and maybe that's a placebo effect that's enhancing my success, and then I regress to the mean. Well, I guess it remains to be seen if that happens here, but I like that you stick to therapy anyway when you don't always feel like you're getting handed a solution. And yes, it is quite normal for your therapist to focus mostly on the symptoms that you're experiencing. And look, you're not wrong, Anonymous. I have had patients tell me, oh, Jim, I'm frustrated. I wish that you would just tell me what's wrong with me. I wish that you could reach in and tell me what is the fundamental thing. We're sitting here, you're trying to teach me coping strategies and techniques and tricks and asking about my feelings. And I've been doing this forever. And I wish you would just reach in and flick the switch that changes me and makes this go away. And I get it. I know that's what you're feeling. I understand that exhaustion. I too live with chronic mental illness. I wish there was a way to turn that switch off. But the reality is that mental health care is about mitigation and management of symptoms and teaching you self-control and coping. Some situations can go away over time. Sometimes they do not, and you learn the skills to manage them so that you can live functionally and effectively. In mental health, we're trying to increase your function. We're not always looking to cure the problem because we don't always think we can.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think one of the things that you said in there too was, as Jim was just saying, that you try something new and you get excited about it working, the new medication, and it seems to work for a little bit. You get a burst of motivation to function better. But as soon as that hope and excitement fades, then things go back to normal. So we just were talking about different modalities. If I was taking a solution-focused brief therapy approach, then I would look at that and say, okay, well, what makes this part different? Something is working. So in that short amount of time, something is working. Is it the medication? Maybe. But if it's not the medication and it's a placebo effect, well, what's causing that? Is there a way that we can, because something's working, is there a way that we can identify what that is and replicate it? Maybe it's not going to be a new medication, but maybe it's something that you're doing because you're on a new medication.
Right.
So sometimes people get put on a new medication, and then what they do is they're hopeful that this medication is going to work. So then they do things they wouldn't otherwise do.
Yes.
I'm going to go out. I'm going to go socialize with my friends. I'm going to go exercise. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And attribute that to the medication.
Yep.
When really the effect is not the medication. It's the belief that it is working causes you to behave in a way in which the symptoms go away.
Which, a la reality therapy,
right?
There's some truth to that. Also, coming back to your point about solution-focused therapy, when people are trying a new intervention or a new medicine, they tend to solution spot.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking for the problems and keeping track of how many times they still feel the problem, they tend to say, do you notice anything different? Mm-hmm. Which is a classic solution-focused therapy question. Mm-hmm. That used to be a trick that we do on the first session with people, is ask them, hey, a lot of people will notice after they book their first session, before they've even sat down in the chair for the first time, that they're already noticing changes.
And
have you caught any of that?
Let me, I'll let you in on a little secret. That's what I do in personal training.
Oh yeah, you do the same thing.
Yeah, yep. When I meet with a client, I say, "All right, so what's better this week than last week?"
Yep. What are you doing better?
What do you notice?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always something positive that's happening, but people want to focus on
the negative.
Ooh, my legs are sore.
Mm-hmm.
And if they focus on that, then they're not focusing on, you know what? I have had a lot more energy.
Yeah.
I am able to stay focused throughout the day a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So if you're not asking those solution-focused questions, then we tend to problem spot instead of solution spot.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But Anonymous, I think what you're saying is so human. So many people hear us read that letter and we're nodding along to every word you wrote and thinking, boy, do I relate to that. And so you're not wrong, everything you said, but I am so proud of you that you still follow through, going to the psychiatrist, going to the therapist, doing your own research and finding your own interventions and putting those into practice. One of Nick's famous sayings is that therapy isn't what happens in the chair. It's what you do in between sessions. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And you're living that out. And so I think you're doing a great job with it. I know this can all be discouraging. I know hearing me sit around and get all academic and lecture about, well, actually, diagnosis means this. It can sound dismissive. I don't want it to be that. I just hope that it adds to your understanding and that it also takes some pressure off your relationship with your therapist, because hearing two knuckleheads on a podcast talk about, well, actually, yeah, that is kind of what this is. Maybe that validates what your therapists have been doing and kind of helps you right-size their role in your treatment, and also can help you right-size your expectations of what you're looking for from mental health and what it even has to give you, right? Because it isn't going to be this fundamental thing. We just don't have that. So let's find out what ChatGPT said about this, because I suspect it will be both shorter than our answer and competitive.
I hope it's shorter.
I think it will probably be okay.
Which one is this? This is the ADHD one?
This is the ADHD one.
All right.
Getting a diagnosis of ADHD can be helpful because it can provide you with a better understanding of your own thought patterns and behaviors, and allow you to make informed decisions about treatment. A diagnosis can also help you to understand that many of the challenges you may be facing are not your fault, but rather a result of an underlying medical condition. However, it's important to note that a diagnosis is just one step in the process, and it's ultimately up to you to decide whether or not you want to seek treatment and how you want to manage your condition. It's also important to keep in mind that everyone with ADHD is different, and what works for one person may not work for another. So it's important to work with a healthcare professional to determine the best course of action for you.
Damn. Honestly, that was pretty fucking good.
Not bad.
Okay. And that's the last episode of Pod Therapy.
Yep. And now it's we'll take over with
now
the robots.
we get to watch our Patreon plummet.
As they all go to the AI. That's fine. As long as they're getting the best answers. Is it? All right. We're at the end of the show. We've got an announcement. What's the big news there, Nick?
I just wanted to bring a little bit of two things. Number one, hi, Matthew Henry.
Oh, Matt. Yeah.
Yep.
There he is. Hi. We are acknowledging
We get a special acknowledgement for you.
Because you were left out.
Because apparently we forgot to mention his name.
Yep.
So
see, don't say we never gave you nothing.
So now we're giving you all this time.
One of our more attractive listeners.
I
agree.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
And I mean from the waist down.
Yeah. I assumed that's where you
didn't need to even be said, but
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Second announcement, just want to say congratulations to our fantasy football winner, Chris Lambert.
Chris Lambert. Yes. Winner extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And you are the champion.
Good job,
my friend.
I do want you to know that there is some merch heading your way. Just needs to be designed. And
exciting.
Hopefully, let's see. Hopefully sometime in February you will be receiving that.
2024.
Right.
Yeah, just to be clear.
Yep.
Keep those expectations right sized. We're at the end of the show. We want to remind you that all the extra content comes out at patreon.com/therapy. You can also get this show and the extra hour of fun times beforehand. And it also comes out a day early. And don't forget access to all of our deep dives and book clubs and journal stuff. And also the world-renowned Discord community, which is its own priceless gem and probably, honestly, the best part of what we do. So fun things at patreon.com/therapy. But we've got some new folks to thank who have come to our aid to support us. Welcome to new Therapal, Neth Wiggs. Neth Wiggs. That feels right.
And we got some new Therapods. Welcome to Amy Legros, Kelly Gagner.
Hi, Kelly.
Oh, Gagner. Captain Redbeard. Scott Ayton.
That feels right.
And Chris and Alyssa from Tiny Home Traveling.
They're awesome, by the way. So they work at Death Valley, and they're just really cool people. They have like this whole like little tiny home, like a trailer that they do, and they're just like nomads, like just seeing the world. That's a great Instagram follow to see like all their cool adventures, and they've been really fun in the Discord. Great people, so welcome. And also we want to thank our TheraPartner, Dirty B, and especially thank our bosses, the Saccharin 16, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the Theraproducers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Jr. Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Dawn, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Dr. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Cindy Ash, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Newstick, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, Slappin' Ya Face, Polygon, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Myra, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon, Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, and a Sunny Boy.
Yeah, if you'd like to hear this episode unedited and uncut.
And who wouldn't?
And enjoy our spontaneous side projects. Go to patreon.com/therapy and thank you for supporting mental health.
You should just start saying, and you wouldn't.
You're doing fine.
You're doing great. That's all the time we got for this week's session. I want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast. And thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it. by opening the episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Bow, 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 bow. Who wants to be a millionaire?
That was fun. Let's do another.
For 650,000 rupees. Oh, Jesus Christ. Nobody wants to listen.
And as the plane crashed down, he said, well, isn't this nice? And isn't it ironic?
Here comes the money note.
It's like rain on a wedding day.
We need to write him a song and throw words in there like pillow.